Physics, Consciousness and Reality. Dickie Dredd and Nigel Adams, and this is part 5 in the video series. So chapter 1, still on the hard science, part A. Most of us assume that consciousness is just something the brain produces. That starts to break down when you look closer. We can map brain activity, track signals, even predict behaviour, but none of that explains why it feels like something to be here at all. So before we go further, why does experience exist in the first place? That's what we're going to address. So section 2 in the book, the hard problem of consciousness. Consciousness has been argued over for centuries by philosophers, theologians, mystics, but only recently has science tried to take it on directly. If physics gives us the external world, consciousness is the internal one, the taste of broccoli, the pain of stubbing your toe, the feeling of free will, the inner chatter of thought. The big question is, how does the lump of grey matter in our skull generate this lived world of experience? Science has proposed several theories. The most famous is global workspace theory. Here the brain is a theatre. Backstage, specialised molecules work unconsciously. When one of them gets into the spotlight, its contents are broadcast to the whole system. That broadcast is what we call consciousness. Neat and tidy, the brain imaging data loosely backs it up. But why does global broadcasting feel like something, rather than just more processing? Another is integrated information theory. This theory claims consciousness is just integrated information. The more unified and differentiated a system's internal cause and effect structure, the more conscious it is. The theory even gives us a number to measure, and we'll address that in a later section. Trouble is, it risks being too generous. Simple circuits could have tiny consciousnesses, which starts to look more mystical than scientific. And again, nothing out here explains why integration produces experience. Higher order thought theories say consciousness is meta-awareness. You don't just see red, you know that you're seeing red. The brain generates thoughts about its own states, and that self-reflective loop is consciousness. But that still leaves us hanging. Why does the higher order thought come with the glow of subjectivity? Recurrent processing theory argues that consciousness appears when information doesn't just flow forward, i.e. input to output, but cycles back in recurrent loops. What makes intuitive sense, consciousness feels like a feedback loop. Yet again, though, the leap from feedback to felt experience isn't bridged. There are others, predictive processing, attention schema models, and hybrids, all mapping useful mechanisms, all testable. They explain how the brain integrates, attends, monitors, and reports. These are the easy problems of consciousness, in David Chalmers' favourite phrase, useful, but not ultimate. And this is where we hit the wall. None of these theories tell us why there's something it feels like to be alive. They explain function, not feeling. Computation, not qualia. I'll define qualia in a second. They map the mechanics, but not the mystery. This gap is what David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness. Why does all that processing light up as subjective experience at all? Why is there a film playing rather than a dark machine silently churning inputs and outputs? This is the knot that mainstream science hasn't untangled. And it's here, staring at the hard problem of consciousness, that our story properly begins. Okay, qualia, by the way, refers to the subjective first-person qualities of conscious experience. What it feels like to see red, taste sweetness, or feel pain. The term highlights that these inner experiences cannot be fully captured by objective physical descriptions of the brain. So, what this section is really doing is showing that every scientific theory of consciousness explains function, but not experience. If that's true, then we may understand the brain in extraordinary detail while still missing most important part. Because the real problem may not be how the brain processes information, but why any of that processing becomes felt at all. So if this isn't what we thought, what exactly is it that's aware right now? Next section is chapter 1, still the hard sciences, and we're going to start on the real hard sciences. Part 3, relativity, space, time, length, and mass dilation. So this book will be out pretty soon from Oakes Press. I'm just working on the getting the graphics done at the moment. It's a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. So please, if you can support us by going to that link and pledging some dosh. We're all volunteers doing this, and we'd like to provide other authors with free ISBNs, etc. for promotion. So if you can promote us. Anyway, part 5 coming soon.